Welcome everybody to the Soccer Sox USA podcast, episode number 2. Once again, I am Trent Marlow. I want to thank you for joining us here on episode number 2. We're talking all things US soccer. That's right, this podcast, we talk NWSL, we talk UPSL, we talk MLS, we talk US men's national team, US players abroad, we talk US women's national team. We have a great episode set up for you today. We're going to hit on 3 main topics, okay? Topic number 1, as promised from episode 1, which was recapping, the Belgium loss in the World Cup that the US men's national team suffered at the hands of Kevin De Bruyne and Lukaku and all those Belgians, almost in flashbacks to 2014. Thank God Tim Howard was alive and on the field back then. Might have made a difference this time around. Anyway, I digress. So we're going to go off and look at some keeper options because that was obviously a massive issue. Matt Freese and Matt Turner were not good enough in my opinion. If you need more of my reasons why, go back, watch that video. I think around the 25 minute mark, probably somewhere around there. I mean, yeah, it was just rough. So episode number 1, you could find that there when I start talking about the cuts for that roster that we just had at this World Cup. Matt Freese and Matt Turner on that list for me. So now we're going to go and dive in to some of these keepers. We are going to first start with Diego Kochen. I hope I'm saying his name correctly. I've seen it pronounced a couple different ways, but this kid is a dual national, okay? He can go really far for the U.S. The Barcelona Academy product looks good. I'm going to be honest. I'm really excited to see what this kid can do. He has a lot of hype around him, which I think, if you're a goalkeeper, is a good thing. Again, he's 20 years old right now, so that makes him 24 when the next World Cup starts in 2030. He's likely to be on our Olympic team. We're also going to talk Olympics. If I forgot to mention that, we're going to talk Olympics and also Gotham FC talk as well this podcast episode. So yeah, let's get into Diego Kochen though. Yeah, Diego Kochen, great keeper at Barcelona. That's just impressive as it is for an American. He is a dual national. I believe it's like 2 or 3 other countries. It's like Peru, maybe Venezuela, smaller South American countries in comparison to what the U.S. is as a footballing nation. I'd say the U.S. is ahead of those 2 countries. Obviously not ahead of Brazil or Argentina or anything, but he's not eligible for them. So I think we have a great chance of landing him. He's played for the U teams coming up. Now he's played in Europe, not for Barcelona really yet, but he's played for the U19 team as well as the U.S. The Barcelona backup team or the B team, Barca Athletic. Again, he's played U17 for the U.S., U16, U19, U20. He's had appearances and all that. So I think he's really being groomed to maybe be the future in Barcelona and hopefully for this U.S. men's national team as well. All right, before we get into the Olympic roster, before we get into the Gotham FC move and on all the other good stuff we have to touch on in this podcast, I'm moving on to our next keeper, none other than Chris Brady. All right, Chris Brady was on this U.S. men's national team roster for this World Cup. He is an older guy when you compare him to some of the other guys on this list, but I think he's done really well with the Chicago Fire. Obviously, he's in MLS right now, but he's been their starter for the last couple of seasons now. Only 22 years old. So again, born in 2004, and he's already been a starter pretty consistently in the MLS since 2023. So he has some good seasons under his belt. He's had a really good start to the beginning of this season, which is why I believe he was called in by Pochettino as that third goalkeeper. And again, 22 years old, that puts him only at 26 next World Cup. If he maybe gets a nice transfer in or just continues to be one of the best goalkeepers in MLS, I think he will pass Matt Freese and Matt Turner. Matt Turner's just going to be old, and Matt Freese, I think, clearly showed us he is not good enough. Chris Brady didn't touch the field, obviously, in the World Cup. He was never going to unless there were 2 massive injuries on the goalkeeper list for us. But Chris Brady, I think he'd get it done. He got his first U.S. cap. He's also dual national with Scotland, but I highly doubt he's going there. Again, I think he wants to play for the U.S. He's played for the under-23 team. He's played for the under-20 team back when he was under 20, obviously. And he's been in the Chicago Fire Academy for a long time. So getting his chance with Chicago Fire, hometown team, hometown club, I think he's still going to continue to grow. I think Berhalter has a good team setting up there. They have, Lewandowski coming there, which we're going to talk about next episode. Wink, wink. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But overall, really happy with Chris Brady. And, if he's the best keeper in MLS in 4 years and that's our best option, I'm okay with that because I think in 4 years, he's going to be better than Matt Freese was right now. So I take that all day. Our next keeper is a guy by the name of Gaga Slonina. And listen, he is, we know him well, right? Gaga, he was at Chicago Fire, obviously. He's moved around now, bounced around Europe. And yeah, I have to say that I think that there's still a chance. He's 22, just like Chris Brady. There's still a chance. So far in his career, he started with Chicago Fire, basically ended off the season in 2021 on fire, for lack of a better term. Started all of 2022 for them, then moved to Chelsea. Big signing for Chelsea. He's had a U.S. cap. He has one U.S. cap, which was back in 2023 in a friendly. He's been also part of the youth national teams. He's played for the Chelsea's under 21 when he was under 21. He's most recently finished a loan stint at Barnsley. So, again, that's a top English club, at least historically. They're a good team. Playing in the championship, or I guess playing in League One, I should say, does him a lot of wonders there. Playing in League One, I know it's probably a little bit of a step under MLS, but listen, he could turn it around. I have faith. This is a kid who has shown that he could be a star goalkeeper for us, so why not give him the chance? Again, this is maybe a little bit more of a long shot than the other two guys I just threw out there. Obviously, Cochin still has his future ahead of him, and Brady has proven that he's already part of this U.S. men's national team, or could be at least, while Slonina, just not exactly proving it yet, but the talent is there, the potential is there, the hope is there, and well, I mean, he's playing in Europe, so maybe he goes far, maybe he turns it around. I mean, if he's playing in the championship in a couple years and, World Cup comes around, again, he's only 22 right now, so 4 years from now, he'll still be younger, on the younger side. I think he could also take over as well. Last but not least, the last goalkeeper I want to talk about, San Diego FC's finest. So San Diego FC, obviously the newest addition to Major League Soccer. He kind of won the job out, this kid. Listen, he was 18 when he first won this job. Born September 28th, 2006. He's only 19 years old. That puts him at 23 for the 2030 World Cup. So again, a true prospect right here. But he's been starting off and on. I think he had a couple injuries. But he's been starting for San Diego FC. He is the number one right now. He won that off in preseason. 13 matches so far in the MLS season, 4 clean sheets, a 6.97 FOTMOB rating. I trust this kid. I think he's pretty good. Duran Furry, I think he's solid. He can go really far. Possibly, I'd love to see him make a transfer in like a year or two to a bigger club. And I think if he does that, he honestly might lock down the U.S. number 1 spot. What concerns me with him is honestly the fact that I don't think that the U.S. considers him ready for the senior team. And whether it's Pochettino or another coach who comes in, I hope that they call him in because I think he really could be an asset. The fact that he's so young and he is kind of raw, like you do see some mistakes when he's out there for San Diego that has hurt them in a couple games. But he makes some amazing saves. And if we're going just purely based off talent, he's ahead of Chris Brady. He's probably ahead of Gaga at this point, and he's probably right there with Cochin. So I'd put him up there as well. So those are my goalkeepers. Yeah, whether it's Chris Brady, it's Cochin, it's Slonina, or it's Furry. I think that any of them could be really good options. There are a couple other guys out there that I didn't feel like showcasing in this episode. Jurgen Klinsmann's son, obviously, is one of them. I believe he's playing in Serie B right now. There are some other options across the globe and in MLS, but those are kind of my main guys. Schulte is obviously a bit older, and he's a good MLS goalkeeper. So there's some other ones out there as well, but I'd like to kind of look for guys that are either on the younger side, have a lot of potential, or just kind of have that pedigree coming up and haven't yet shown through with that potential, like Slonina. And even honestly, Chris Brady, because if he makes a move, I mean, his potential is just going to get higher with where he's playing. So I think he's already kind of reached that ceiling with the Fire. But if he just continues to be one of the best goalkeepers in MLS, that's really exciting for me. So yeah, that's what I think of the goalkeeper situation. Obviously, if you don't remember, check out last episode number 1 of the Soccer Sox USA podcast. Again, my name is Trent Marlow. Feel free to look us up on Spotify, on YouTube. Yeah, and I gave all my reasons for why Matt Turner and Matt Freese should no longer be part of this national team. I don't care if they help us qualify, but I'm talking about in 2030, when the World Cup comes around, I don't want them there anymore. Up next, we have to talk about Gotham FC. That's right, some NWSL talk, all right? The two-time and reigning NWS champions. Jeez, I can't talk. NWSL champions. New York's favorite, Gotham FC. Listen, they are a very talented team. Obviously, they've had U.S. women's national team players. Excuse me. We should talk about the men's team. Forgive me, guys. Don't go after me in the comments on Twitter or whatever. My apologies. The U.S. women's national team has had plenty of their players play for Gotham. That's been the case for other national teams as well. I think they're one of the premier teams in the NWSL. I've loved what they've done with Boston Legacy. I've loved what they've done in Denver, but this is like one of the OG teams for me in terms of like when I think about like cool kits, nice vibes, like good players, top talent. This is one of those teams. All right. They announced that they're officially going to move out of the Sports Illustrated Stadium, what was formerly known as Red Bull Arena in Harrison, New Jersey. Now, Red Bull sold the naming rights, so obviously it's Sports Illustrated Stadium, still where the New York Red Bulls play all of their home games. Now, they're moving on, so it's just going to be the Red Bull Stadium. So there's still going to be a home for the Red Bulls. But Gotham FC is moving on. Gotham FC is moving on to bigger and better things. They're moving on to Etihad Park, which is where, of course, crosstown rivals of the New York Red Bulls are going to be home to, and that is New York City FC. So basically, they still don't have their own stadium, which I do think is kind of a downside for them. I would love to see Gotham FC, even if it's in Connecticut, in New Jersey. I know it doesn't have to be in New York. The Red Bulls obviously aren't in New York. That we know it from this World Cup. The Giants and Jets do not play in New York. The New Jersey Nets, for whatever time they were semi-success. I think if they just kept the name New York, the Nets would have been a little bit more successful in New Jersey. But man, Jason Kidd could ball out back in the day. Regardless, I do think that, having this in the five boroughs rather than staying in New Jersey could be a good move for them. I think, honestly, it's just bad for the Red Bulls more than anything else, because it was like, oh, at least Gotham FC also plays here, so we're both New York teams playing in the same stadium. But no, now it's going to be New York City FC and Gotham playing in the five boroughs while the New York Red Bulls are still stuck in Harrison, New Jersey. Again, it's going to be like a 2-minute walk off like the subway, which is perfect for them. I think that they're super excited about this. I can't wait to see what happens. Supposedly, this isn't going to start until 2028, so if you're a New Jersey resident and it's easier for you to catch Gotham FC games in Sports Illustrated Stadium, you got another year or two, so go enjoy it while you can. Again, those ladies know how to ball out. I've really been a big fan of Boston Legacy. I think Gotham and Boston and then probably Denver as well probably have the three coolest kits outside of like Hearts of Pines right now and El Paso Locomotive in all of American soccer. You maybe throw Detroit City FC in there as well. But yeah, so that's kind of the news there. Just wanted to update the audience more than anything else, and I'm excited to see how they do this season. They are champions. I hope they remain to be champions. I will root for the club. And I'm just interested to see what that means for obviously Gotham FC, but also the two MLS teams that are now affiliated with them just through the stadium and kind of geographical area, of course. There's also Brooklyn FC, which we will definitely get into later on throughout this podcast series. Another love of mine is Motown FC. So plenty of good quality footballing teams in the soccer atmosphere of New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, one of the hotbed footballing nations of this country. They've produced Tim Howard and Tony Meola, and I know I'm just naming keepers now, but Tab Ramos and Claudio Reyna and Greg Berhalter as a player, not a coach. Dear Lord God, don't give me him as a player. But yeah, that's what I think about this move. Not to go off on a rant about Berhalter. I could do that any day of the week. But I really do appreciate the fact that Gotham FC is looking to do what they think is biggest and best for their future, and I am excited to see how they do as well. They also, got to play on City Field recently, and that was a record-setting night for them. And that's also impressive. It's always great to see, fans showing out for women's soccer. I'm not going to talk about the pay disparity or anything like that because as a lowly podcaster, there's not much I can do and not much change I can affect. I will say I understand both sides of the argument, obviously, but I do think if female athletes, I should say, are going to get paid, if women's soccer players are going to get paid more in this country and all across the world, that putting them in the best position to succeed with the most exposure, which in this case is going to New York, is fantastic for them. So that's what I have to say about Gotham FC possibly moving stadiums, or most likely moving stadiums, supposedly, reportedly starting in 2028. But I have a feeling we're going to see some, mixing and matching here as we go along. I know New York City FC has had to do that along the way as well. They've even played in Sports Illustrated Stadium from time to time. So just kind of mix match depending on schedules, baseball schedules, and other schedules, and how they do. But either way, I think it's a solid move for everybody involved, besides, of course, the New York Red Bulls, who always seem to get the short end of the stick in MLS. All right, one last thing that I want to talk about in this episode of the Soccer Sox USA podcast is the 2028 U.S. Olympic news. Basically, it was announced that Steve Cherundolo, former U.S. men's national team player, legend, you could almost argue, for his World Cup performances, multiple World Cups for the U.S. men's national team, fantastic outside back, played in Germany, played in Europe, big-time player for the U.S., big-time coach at LAFC and MLS before recently stepping down, citing some family issues, or not issues, I shouldn't say, but wanting to spend more time with his family. I think issues is probably the wrong word there. My apologies. But yeah, wanting to spend more time with his family. He's now taking the job as the U.S. Under-23 coach, you could say, or the U.S. Olympic coach, basically. So it's going to be a 2-year cycle, pretty much. This is how most Olympic teams work. I believe the U.S. automatically qualifies, and they don't have to qualify like they did for the last Olympics, which they did qualify for, and was good. They got to go play in France last Summer Olympics. But now the 2028 Olympics is in LA, so I'm pretty sure we get an automatic bid. And basically, the way that Olympic soccer works, especially on the men's side, historically, has been that you basically take a U23 team. It's required. You take a U23 team, and then you got not one, not two, but three overage players to go with that team. So basically, if they wanted to take Christian Pulisic, Flo Balogun, and Chris Richards to this Olympics, they could. But that's not traditionally what you do. Neymar has played in multiple Olympics, but Messi has not, to my knowledge. That's just one example I can come up with. Basically, that's kind of how it works. It might be more like you see a Sebastian Berhalter go to the Olympics, or a Alexander De Haas, someone that was on this 26-man roster but wasn't the star player for the U.S., could be joining these under-23 players. And I think Steve Cherundolo is a great guy to lead them because he's coached at a younger youth level for a long time. Obviously, right now, he's coaching the under-23 for the U.S. men's national team, but he came up through the USU system. He played in the US U20 team, 23 team before he got his start with the US men's national team. He was manager of the Las Vegas Lights before he went to LAFC. He's coached a lot. After he retired from Hanover, 96, he began as an assistant coach. So after he retired from playing in Germany, he began as assistant coach, started in the academy, coached the U17s. So I think Cherundolo really has experience with that youth, which I think is great for U.S. soccer. And I'm really excited to see what he does. And I'm really excited to watch this team. And the other thing I want to talk about, I think great Cherundolo is there. And I think that he's going to do a lot of great things. I think this team is honestly the most talented youth team, if they put it together correctly, the most talented youth team that the U.S. has ever had. We're going to go over, it went viral on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, real quickly. I want to touch on this very, very quickly. I'm sure we'll have another episode where I go more in depth on this. I basically just want to say I'm happy that they hired Steve Cherundolo, and that's completely fair of me to say, in my opinion, because this guy is proven he's a great coach. He's proven he's a good youth coach, and I think he's like the perfect level for this Olympic team. I don't want to talk about him being the United States men's national team manager afterwards, should that be the case. I know some nations like to do that. It's worked out pretty well for France, obviously. Or not France, excuse me, for Spain. Obviously, they're going on to a World Cup final because of a youth coach through their system. Del Fuente was a youth coach for the national teams and then worked his way up to being Spain's manager. I don't know if that's necessarily the blueprint for success for the U.S. with Steve Cherundolo, but I do want to go over the Olympic roster predictions that went viral, or hashtag mini viral, in U.S. national team and MLS circles on social media. And that is two goalkeepers, Diego Cochin and then Julian Eyestone. Not too familiar with Eyestone. We've talked a lot about Cochin, so I'm not really going to touch the goalkeepers, and I'm honestly not that worried about it. I'd love to see Duran Furry there. Obviously, I talked about him. Again, San Diego FC's guy. I think he'd be a nice fit. Then defenders are pretty easy. So it's Noah Kai Banks. That's if he chooses the U.S. I think he will now, especially now that Germany bombed out to Paraguay and the U.S. at least embarrassed Paraguay. U.S. might have been embarrassed by Belgium, but let's be honest, they embarrassed Paraguay. So that's a step up for the U.S. over whatever Germany did in that game. Next defender would be Madatai Ekanabani. Again, not too familiar with him. Neil Pierre, pretty decent player, still developing. Where it gets interesting is then you have a Joe Scally. Again, that would be an over 23 player, supposedly projected, but that's the type of player that you tend to bring to the Olympics. A guy who's been part of the U.S. Men's senior team, but isn't necessarily a star for them and isn't really part of the future or someone you build around. Peyton Miller is the next guy. I'd love to see Peyton Miller out there, 18 years old, crushing it for the Revolution. I know he just signed a big multi-year contract extension, but I don't see him staying at New England even through 2028. I think he's going to make a move abroad. I hope it's Germany and not England, but honestly, I do not know what's going to happen there. Next, we have Frankie Westfield. Frankie Westfield, good player. Again, a lot of these defenders, it's really hard to judge because I'd love to see a guy like Josh Widener there, or I know John Tolkien's no longer eligible, but some of these MLS players that could go there. Matthew Dos Santos, he's not on the list, and I think that would be another add as well. So maybe a Widener or Dos Santos instead of some of those other guys. But overall, I'm fine with the defenders. It's really hard to judge defenders at a younger age. I think those are the age groups where you don't play them on the national team level until they're 22, 23, and none of these guys are that age yet, besides obviously Joe Scally. Noah Kai Banks is getting there. That's why we know him. That's why he's such a big name. Peyton Miller is a phenom at 18. But most defenders are not like that, if we're being honest. So, you got to give him time. I think back to Anthony Robinson, he's getting better with age. Chris Richards is 27, getting better with age. So those are things we have to consider. Moving on to midfielders real quick. Kevin Sullivan, lock make. Nico Chakiris, as long as he keeps playing the way he's playing, lock make. Benjamin Krishima, lock make. He's playing in Europe right now. He's playing in Italy. Sebastian Berhalter, overage player. I'd be fine with that. I think he brings great leadership, great passion. I'd also be okay if they threw Diego Luna in there because Diego Luna has been to an Olympics with this U.S. team. He was at the last Olympics. He played very well for them. So that's a guy that I'd also be okay with bringing. If the new coach or Pochettino wants to bring him back into the national team after whatever the fiasco of leaving him off the roster was. Not that I'm against it or for it. I was kind of disappointed he wasn't on the roster. But if it was him or Alex Andejas, I understand the decision was made. Not sure I agree with it, but Alex Andejas was playing out of his mind. Who knows coming back from injury? Those are the facts. I'm not sure that's exactly what happened, though. Like, if it was Gio Reyna or Luna, then I have a little bit more of an issue with it. But I digress, because Gio Reyna didn't do anything for us in any of the big games. Anyway, he showed up, late garbage time goal against Paraguay and played, meaningless against Turkey in a game that didn't mean anything, and played okay against Belgium in a game where we needed him to do something, he did nothing. Brooklyn Reigns, another great midfielder that could fit in there well. And then Audrey Mehmeti. I mean, this kid, I've talked about him last episode. I know I also talked about Kevin Sullivan, but Audrey Mehmeti, I mean, this kid is possibly the greatest youth national team prospect in the midfield specifically. I think Kevin Sullivan's more of a winger or attacking cam, but I'm talking like a true 6 or an 8. Like, Audrey Mehmeti is just like the best talent the U.S. has ever had. Honestly, if he stepped on the field now for the U.S., he would be not too far behind Tyler Adams. Of course, they both came up playing for the New York Red Bulls. Forwards would be Matthias Albert, obvious lock make right now, playing in Europe, playing at a high level. Xavier Gozo, again, obvious lock make, playing at a high level for RSL right now in MLS. Hopefully he makes that move to Europe soon. I'd love to see him go to a La Liga or an Everdies or a Bundesliga team, or even a Ligue 1 team. Basically stay away from the Premier League and stay away from Serie A when Gozo makes that move. I just don't see him as the prototype player that's going to make that. He runs hard, he runs fast, he comes through on counters, he comes through on pressures, but he's not the cleanest on the ball yet. I think he can still get there. And listen, this kid can shoot like nobody's business. Fantastic to see. The other overage player that is on the list for forwards is Haji Wright. I'm fine with that. Would almost prefer Patrick Agyemang if he's going to be back from injury. Obviously, massive injury for him. Hopefully, he heals up soon. That or like a there's plenty of other options there for attacking options. I'd be okay with the Brian White going, something like that, or even a Josh Sargent, someone who's been there, done that. But Haji Wright works as well. And then the last one is Julian Zarzeki Hall, another guy who is teammates with Audrey Mehmeti. Was in the last video with Kevin Sullivan and Mehmeti and Banks when I talked about all the guys that could take over the next wave of future generations. Julian Hall is one of those guys. He's been on a scoring rampage for the New York Red Bulls, and I expect him to be in Europe by the time the 2028 Olympics kicks off. So hopefully we're able to see that as well. All right. I wanted to thank you all for tuning in once again to the Soccer Sox USA podcast. One more time, my name is Trent Marlow. Thank you all for joining us. Again, we talk everything U.S. soccer, UPSL, NWSL, MLS, U.S. players abroad, U.S. youth national teams. I can't speak today. I'm sorry. But yeah, there's so much we can talk about. There's always so much going on in the world of the American soccer landscape, in the footballing world. And I want to thank you for joining us for episode 2. We talked Olympics, we talked goalkeepers, and of course, we talked a little bit of Gotham FC. Now, I want to make sure you tune in next week for episode number 3. Episode number 3, MLS is back episode. We're going to kind of go over some of the moves that we might have missed during the World Cup kind of mini transfer window, whatever you want to call it. Duncan McGuire's moved from Orlando to Houston. Big signing of Louis going to Chicago. What does that mean for my man Hugo, who normally wears the number 9 for Chicago? He's still on the roster. Don't forget about this guy. He's leading MLS in a lot of goal-scoring categories. Thomas Mueller, how does he look with the Whitecaps if Berhalter does decide to move on and he's going to have to cover more ground? Dennis Bouanga, in charge of MVP behind Messi. What does Messi look like when he comes back? What do some of the youth teams look like? Can the Philadelphia Union right the ship? What's Kevin Sullivan's remainder of his season looking like? And plenty of other storylines as well. So make sure you tune in for that episode. Again, I really appreciate all the support. Tune in, subscribe on YouTube, Spotify. Tune in next episode. We're going to go over all things MLS plus some more storylines. As always, again, this episode recapped a whole bunch of stuff. Let me know what you want to see next in the comments, what position group I should really dive into, or what storylines you want me to cover. Just give my basic thoughts, my footy knowledge. I think it's pretty deep. Let me know in the comments. Like and subscribe. Thank you once again.